Hey, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to Oracle Cards 101 with me, Colette Baron-Reid, your host and your teacher for this webinar. I'm so unbelievably blown away. Over 11,000 people signed up for this webinar. So it really tells me that there's a lot of you guys that want to know more about working with Oracle cards. And I want to say thank you to all of you who filled out the, what did they do, Mark? Was this a survey? The survey. My husband's helping me here. But I need to explain something to you. What happened when I read your survey, there was like 600 people here. I realized I have to do another webinar now. And that webinar is going to be called Oracle Cards 2.0. So I want you to come to this. Obviously, you're here. I want you to be here in this webinar. I want you not to leave until the very end, because the Q&A is where all the action comes. At least I found that in the other webinars that I've done, is when you guys start writing down the things that you want to know more about that I've already covered, then we get really juicy in the Q&A. So, but as I said, we are now going to be choosing to do another webinar too, not today, but we're going to schedule it to really cover a lot of what you guys are asking for here that we won't cover today. But please, don't be shy. I want you to ask questions at the end of this webinar so that you can interact with me and I can give you more detailed information around what you want to know. But as I said, Oracle Cards 2.0 is also coming after reading your survey. So please tell me where you're from. I've got the chat open and I don't see anybody on the chat. Are you letting them in now, Mark?
Yeah, they're in there.
Where?
Oh, I don't have the enable the chat.
Oh,
yeah,
he forgot to enable the chat. I want to say hello to the first person and tell me where you're from. Aha, Elisa. Where are you from? Elisa. That's our first person. Look at them. Your guys are going too fast. Yes.
While we're waiting for them to come on, let's do the poll too.
I want to know Poland, Germany. Oh my God. San Antonio, Texas, the UK, Guam, Sweden. Oh my God. St. Catharines, Ontario, Seminole, Florida. Oh my God, this is going by so fast, I can't read it. Okay, well, hi, everybody. Look at how many people are here.
Let's do a poll.
Okay, my husband is bossy now. He wants to do a poll. What kind of poll?
Okay, so we just put up a poll that asks.
Oh, yeah, we want to know all about, do you consider yourself to have, lots of newbies in here. So let me tell you a little bit about myself while you're answering the polls, because some of you don't know who I am. And I thought that was hilarious when I read about like 10 people in here going, I don't know who you are, but I think I really want to study with you. So a little bit of my background and why I spend so much time in my life being obsessed all about Oracle cards, creating Oracle cards for Hay House, and using them in my life for 43 years. So I am old enough, I will tell you, when I was 17 years old, I got my very first tarot deck. I had no teacher, so I had to learn by reading books, and I read and practiced. By the time about 30 years ago, I won't tell you the whole story, but I started using divination systems, Oracle cards, professionally, full-time, and have for full 30 years. So you have 30 years of experience in here. About 28 years ago is when I first started creating my own systems, because the tarot, which is what I started with, which was a fixed system, was something I thought, I want to expand on this. So I actually became an expert in all these other in divination systems that you find globally around the world. So this is why I am here today with you. So, oh my gosh, Mark, there's actually half newbies, half familiars, and about, look at all, it's like a third. This is crazy. Okay, so for those of you guys in here who are familiar with Oracle cards, this is going to help you reiterate what you already know, may give you some more insight. So you guys should really hop on that Q&A at the end of this when we start opening up the floor for you to ask me questions. And the newbies should really just open up, listen, and watch, because the stuff I'm going to be talking to you about today are the essentials of what you need to know about Oracle cards. And the things you think you should know, like how to shuffle cards and how to pick a deck and what's the difference between card decks, etc. So we're really going to be, let me just take a look here. 28%, Mark, own a lot of decks, and they're 38% newbies and 34% familiar. Oh, we're getting up to 30% with the decks. Hi, Natasha, Ava, Teresa, Jilly from Saskatoon, Christine, Valerie. Oh my gosh, look how many people are here. It's amazing. Maura from Montreal. Hey, this is so fun. I love this. Can they see the chat too? Can they see each
They
other?
absolutely
They
can.
can see each other on the chat also. There's Sherry. There's Vera. Do you know that Vera is my middle name? It means truth teller. Isn't that beautiful? So I love it when I see the name Vera. Nobody knows my middle name is Vera. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to pass you the paper. Okay, here. Okay, so Mark, would you please put up the first slide, and we're going to get teaching, and then don't forget, stick it out, even if you're, well, just stay. Don't be bored. Stay to the end so you can ask me questions, and we can get really juicy then. See you in a second. So what exactly are oracle cards? How do you use them, and why do you want to? Well, first of all, let's start with the absolute basics. Oracle cards are a deck of cards. But what's on the cards is what's really important. The word oracle means to speak wisdom. It comes from the word orare, which means to speak, and the word oracle has been used over centuries to depict the experience of tuning into the numinous through either a person called an oracle or an object that provides oracular guidance, like cards. Now, when you take the oracle cards and you look at them, what's on top of them is the most important part. And what is that? Well, the way the oracle works is that they have pictures, images, symbols, and metaphors that are in the art that is on each card. Now, here's what's really fun. Oracle cards are not all created equal. You might find that a card deck is created specifically to be just a hug from the universe, and there's tons of decks out there like that. I made one like that called Postcards from Spirit, and here it is. It was specifically created for you to only choose one card, like getting a postcard in the mail, and it was not created for the cards to speak to each other. So this is called a distinct oracle, where you know that there's either an affirmation on it, or you've got a nice saying or a quote from a book. And typically an oracle card deck like that won't work well with each other, and they're not meant to. Now, sometimes people try to make them and say they are, but you'll know. And you'll always know when you work with a card deck whether they are the hug from the universe, which is really good. I mean, cards like that are good. Or a real divination system, which is mostly what I create. I've only created the one for the hug from the universe, and I created a lot of true divination systems. And what the difference is that a divination system, all the cards work as a system. The language, if you will, of the card deck forms something called a lexicon, or you can imagine like a matrix. And all of the different cards represent a series of potentials in the human experience, and they all go together. So you could find a myriad of different groupings of cards that tell a story in motion. And you hear me talk about this a lot on my videos, etc., but I really want you guys to get this, that a divination system will tell the full story, whereas the hug from the universe will tell you something you need to know just for the day. So the distinction of these two are pretty obvious, right? Now, all of my decks are divination systems, as I said, with cards that were created to speak to one another, and they're really a multi-purpose instrument. All right, now I want you to really think about this. My oracle cards are a mirror. So imagine you've got your cards, you're looking at them, they're showing you you. They're showing you your dominant energy. They're showing you all the things behind you that you can't see. They're showing you things that you might miss. They're showing you a mirror of things that are hidden from you also, but are right there on your shoulder. So they are real truth tellers. That's what they're supposed to be. Now, remember I said they're a multi-purpose instrument. They're also a navigation device. Like you've got your own GPS. There's a mirror and a GPS in the same box. Why is it a navigation system? Because a true oracle will help you see where you have been on a map. Oh, I just came from that experience. Oh, here I am right now. Remember the mirror? So you can orient yourself with a good oracle. Oh, here's where I really am. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I wasn't seeing. And so here's the truth of where I am. And they'll show you the path that you need to follow in order to see your intentions show up in the world of conditions. So they act as a GPS. Here's where I was. Here's where I am. I'm orienting myself now. There's my true north, my purpose. I'm going to go follow that path. And the cards help you do that. So you think a mirror and a GPS is enough? There's more. We've got a flashlight. I love this. They illuminate the dark. So that means when you work with my divination systems, and again, I can only really speak for mine. I don't speak for anybody else's oracle card decks out there at all, just mine. Mine are made also to be a flashlight. Why? Because we stumble around in the dark and most of us have no clue what to do with our wounded ego, our shadow selves, and the issues that we drag along with us, our baggage that we don't notice, but we know there's a burden. So, oracle cards can really help you shine the light on the things you can't see so they can help you cut off the ties to the baggage you don't want and help you heal the shadow stuff that we all have. Our wounded ego can really, really shed light on that and illuminate the parts of us that need help. So, think that's enough? There's more. It's a telephone. Don't you want one of these now? So, oracle cards are a way, and they are actually the key to communicate with the conscious universe. Now, I'm going to use that terminology here because I want you to get that the universe is alive, that we are surrounded by consciousness. We are made by that consciousness. So how do we talk to it? We're not taught how. Our culture conditions us to believe that we're separate, or that this universe or this great intelligence or source or God or goddess or whatever you want to call it is something separate from us and up and over there. But what oracle cards prove is that you can have a direct, intimate dialogue, hence why they're called divination cards, with the divine. So you are doing it intimately, directly, and personally. You're picking up the phone like E.T. E.T. phone home. Hey, I'm having trouble right now. Can you help me? Yes is going to be the answer. How? By showing you the mirror, by showing you the GPS, and by giving you directions so that you can talk and I'll listen. So there's also an interpreter all in one also. I've got one more to talk about. I didn't know I did, but I do. So they help you interpret your life's experience. So you know how sometimes you get into situations and you don't understand what is going on. You can't see because your nose is suction cupped onto the end of your face, or like your life is suction cupped onto the end of your nose. That's actually the way I usually say it. And you can't really see. You can't see what's going on. So you use the oracle as well to be able to interpret the experiences that you are confused about to help you get clarity. So again, a mirror, a navigation device or GPS, flashlight, a telephone, and an interpreter. This is all in one. Oracle, wisdom in a box. That's what this is. All right, now we're going to move on and talk about selecting your deck. Now, remember, I'm only talking about my oracle card decks, but you obviously can choose other people's too. So here's my advice about that. Now, first of all, you want to know that there's lots of decks that you can work with. Which one resonates with you? Now, if you've never heard that word before, I'm sure you have, but what does it actually mean? You have a feeling about something. You're drawn to it or attracted to it, or you're told about it by a friend, or you've read about it and it intrigues you enough that you would like to work with it. So remember that there are many possibilities of choice for you. I typically teach and work with Wisdom of the Oracle because the way I created this deck was very, very intense, and I speak to all different avenues of potentiality in the deck, like relationships, prosperity, the essence of your experience, and protection cards, which give us a little extra hug from the universe because we always need one if you're going off course, for example. So this is really extensive, which is why I teach with this deck. I recently put out a mystical shaman deck with Alberto Vallaldo. So maybe you feel drawn to that deck because of the theme, you like the art, you feel the connection to that specific genre. So, you got to kind of feel your way around that. Or you might choose some of my other decks, right? I've got the Enchanted Map and Wisdom. I don't even know how many decks I have now. Wisdom of Avalon and Wisdom of Hidden Realms. And then you're going to get the Spirit Animal deck in the fall, and then the Goddess Power deck. So I'm creating all these really independent systems that all work together. Now, you might want to work with one particular deck for a while, but then you feel that you outgrow it, and then you want to move to another one, and that's really common too. But I would like you to stick to just one deck, until you get really used to working with that one deck. Now, how do you know if you're going to like the deck? Well, first of all, you really need to know who the creator of the deck is. Oracle cards are different from the tarot. So the tarot are always going to be a fixed system. There are 78 cards. They're always going to mean basically the same thing. And so you're really going to choose the author of a tarot deck based on your personal connection to the artwork, or if they've tweaked any of the meanings and you like that. But you're always going to get the same thing with a tarot deck. With Oracle cards, it's different. They're fluid. So each author will have a very different way of approaching the content of the Oracle. And you really need to vibe with the author. So if you vibe with another author more than me, go work with their deck. But if you vibe with me and you understand my own understanding of divination systems and the decks I create, and you vibe with those, then you want to work with one of mine. Now, when you do that, you want to take the cards out. I'm going to do that for you right now. And you want to look at the pictures. I opened up a brand new deck, so this is a little stiff. You know what? I'll just talk to you about it in a second, then I'll get my husband see his arm. Mark's going to open the deck for me. So you're going to want to look at the pictures. And so you'll notice, for example, in my decks, I work with the same artist, but we're very careful to be very distinct in the styles of the Oracle. So each one has its own vibe. This one, for example, Wisdom of the Oracle, has a little bit of a surreal feel to it, and also a circus vibe. So we have, this is a perfect example here of a little bit of the playfulness. Like this card, Not For You, has a fortune cookie on a chessboard that says nope. So you can see we're very clear in the art to give you also a frame of reference to the actual meaning of the card itself. So you'll notice how orphaned is. You can even see just how sad that card, oopsies, how sad that card is. Let's put it like that. My husband is like sticking his arm out. So you see these two cards, right? You'll get it a little closer if you open the deck. So Not For You says nope, and it's got a hand on a chessboard, and it's a fortune cookie. And on this one, you'll see orphaned. It looks like a person that's very sad, that's sitting on a rock with a mask on its face, like in a nest, like it's a bird going, I don't like my life. So you'll see that each card from this particular deck has the feeling, has the implication, and has symbolism that match the meaning, or the basic meaning of the cards. So see that you make sure you like the art and you feel comfortable with it, and you're like, ooh, that really speaks to me, that art. I really like that art. And usually, like on Amazon or other booksellers, you'll be able to see pictures. Certainly on my Facebook page, you can see pictures of pretty much all my decks, or you can go to my website, ColetteBaron-Reid.com/pick, and you'll be able to see the cards there. So there's tons of places where you could actually see cards to see whether or not you like the art, right? That's key. The second thing is read excerpts from the book, right? So you wanna. Most people, like certainly I'm not going to say most people because I don't know about most people. I write a lot for these booklets, and I do it because I'm drawn to, I'm compelled to, and I feel that for me to have the privilege of creating an oracle system, a divination system for people, it needs to be extensive, and it needs to be intelligent, and it needs to make sense. And so I spend a lot of time. I spent about 9 months writing these books and ensuring that it all works together. That, remember I said earlier, there was that lexicon or language that all the cards talk to each other, which makes it a true system of divination or divine dialogue. So here we go. So you open the booklet. I always laugh when people say, oh, I'm still reading the booklet. I'm like, good, because the guidebook will sometimes have 2 words in it that pop out at you that are so crucial to answer that question that you've imparted to yourself and the universe that you need it. So the book is important. Always read the booklet, the guidebook. The other thing is, again, when you're choosing your author, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you're going to pick me because you're here. But anytime you want to buy an oracle card deck, who made them? How much knowledge and do they actually have around working with divination systems? What is their background? What do they stand for? You want to make sure that you get a deck where you feel connected to the author, because you can't take the author out of the deck. That person's consciousness is going to be part of this. Even though you're the one that's going to be using it, you know, the artist and the author have some influence on the deck. You want to know that they're the right person for you. Now, okay, so basically I think that's it. So you have to remember, you pick your deck. Who do you resonate with? What creator do you resonate with? Does the author feel like you can vibe with them? Does the content feel like you can work with it? Do you like the pictures of the oracle card deck? And do you appreciate the theme of that? And then you make your choice. And again, you have lots and lots of choice. You don't have to pick mine. I hope you do. But again, you do some research before you jump in. And always know that if something doesn't speak to you, pick another one that does. Eventually, one oracle card deck is going to speak to you. And the really good divination systems will speak to a mass group of people. Because why? Because in a really good divination system, the lexicon or the language speaks to the universal experiences that most people have every single day. So this is one of the reasons why you'll get a chance to see how accurate is this when you use the deck. And that's why I say go to my website and choose cards for free there just to see how it vibes with you. All right, next we're going to talk about something so simple that everybody gets upset about: how to shuffle your deck. Let's talk about how to shuffle your deck now. Now, there's so much superstition and very strange information about shuffling the deck and what you're not supposed to do and what you should do and what would be bad. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I've been doing this for 30 solid years, and there is no one way to shuffle a deck. There's your way. So I'm going to show you a bunch of ways, and you're going to decide what works for you. And you're going to do this, obviously, when you first open your deck. And I think that's the most important shuffling moment, is when you crack open the deck, you've decided to use it. You're now developing a relationship with the deck. This is a sacred thing. And so you're going to want to ensure that the deck is exactly the way you want it to be. Now, you got to know, though, whether or not the deck has reversed cards in it as well as upright. Some decks, like my first deck, the Wisdom of Avalon Oracle card deck, does not have any reversals on it. So you only read those cards upright, in the upright position. But as I got more complicated and complex, and the universe spoke to me and through me as I was creating these cards about more things to talk about and deeper things, we wanted to also have reverse cards. So you'll notice that cards can be upside down and be a challenger card, or they could be what I've now started calling the reversals as protection cards, because they're there to help you course correct in case you're a little bit off track, or they're there to take a look at a different side to the same coin. We don't know until you get to know the author and actually you get to know the actual deck. So here's what I want to show you how to do first. So you've got the deck brand new. Okay, this came brand new. As you know, that Mark had to open up the deck for me because it was too stiff for my little fingers. So you're going to notice that it's a little stiff. Some of the cards are stuck together. When you first get your deck, it's like a little bit intimidating because you don't want to wreck it and you're worried. And so I just want to tell you this: the very first time you open your deck, you're going to want to separate the cards. So I like going one by one, to be quite honest with you. So I take this card. I know they're all going to be upright because that's how they're printed. And I want to make sure that I'm turning cards upright, upside down, no matter what they are. So now these are because I've been playing with them for a little bit during our little break. And you want to just like separate it out like this, go in the middle, put it down like that. See, oh, there's two cards stuck together. I definitely want to separate those. And then you want to go like that. And you just want to spend a little time ensuring your cards are separate. All right, so little piles if you want. Sometimes I like to put them in 3 piles. But ultimately, you have a half and a half, like you would just about to start a poker game, for example. So here's a traditional way of working with cards that I know some people go, oh, you can't do that with your cards. But if you don't bend your cards, they're not going to feel soft in your hands, etc. So sometimes, even though this is hard, is what I'm doing. Ow! And if you do that a couple of times or do that in smaller piles, you'll get a really properly mixed deck. Now, the mindset that you approach the shuffle with is also really important. And one of the notes that I made for myself for you guys here is that it's a ritual, and it's both cleansing. You're cleansing the cards. So in other words, whatever energy was in it before, whether it be direct from the manufacturer, whether it be from the reading you did for somebody just before that or for yourself, you want to actually just mix the cards and clear the energy of those cards. And also you're actually mixing the energy of the cards, so to give you more possibilities of telling your story in motion, which is what the cards of true divination system will tell your story in motion, which means you can use more than one card to tell a story, and you'll get a really interesting reading. Now, you want to focus on your question when you shuffle the cards too. And I forgot the one most important one. I forgot that altogether. So besides the mixing here, you can do the poker player. You also can do it this way, like this. And my favorite mixing thing, I love to do this, is when you take all the cards and make a mess. Just make a mess. Make a mess on the table. Put a big giant pile of cards on the table and turn them around. At the same time, asking for only the highest good, to do no harm, to see this as a sacred communication, that you're tuning into something higher than you, a higher purpose, your higher self, the conscious universe, your guides, your angels, or whatever it is that you connect to that is sacred for you. You're igniting this while you're doing this with your cards, and then you can take them out one by one and put them back together, like in little piles. So you'll for sure now have a really perfectly mixed deck to start with. And then, now I do want to talk to you about something else too, because a lot of people think, oh, no one is allowed to touch my cards. What if that's bad? And I've heard all kinds of crazy things over the years, I swear to God. There's no such thing. It's up to you whether you let somebody touch your cards or not. It is really nothing to do with anything but superstition. I did readings solidly for 25 years where I used oracle cards. I created my own, and I also used the classical tarot. And everybody touched my cards when they saw me in person, and nobody did when I was on the phone with them. So it's up to you who touches your cards. It's just really important that when you approach the oracle, you have the cards, you recognize they're not just a deck of cards. There's wisdom in the cards. You're using it in a sacred manner to gain clarity, to open your connection to the conscious universe. Anything then becomes possible for you. Remember, it's a mirror. I told you that the last time. It's a navigation system. It's a telephone, ET phone home. We're looking at an interpreter also of your life's experiences. So this is like a big deal. And you want to be respectful of it. You also want to ensure that you do no harm, that you're only getting information for the highest good. And there is your answer right there about shuffling and what mindset you bring to the table when you actually shuffle the cards. Now you're actually ready. What are we doing next? We're selecting our cards next. Okay, so let's talk about selecting your cards. I'm going to move that out of the way. When you're ready to do a reading, as we've just come out of the shuffling, we've made it sacred, we're feeling excited, we're going to ask a question, and we're going to select a card. But there is really important ways that you need to know how to select a card. So let's show you one way right here. So let's do this fanning in front of us way. Now, the reason I fan from left to right is because we've been conditioned to see time as linear. We usually look at, and the way we read also in a book. In the English language, we read from left to right. So it's sort of the same natural sense of, oh, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to read a story, I'm going to tell the tale. So you go from left to right. Now, how you pick the card here is up to you. You could decide, I'm going to start picking my cards from the middle of the pack. But the next piece is really important. You have to decide which is the top of the card when the card is face down, right? You're either going to slide it this way in front of you, so it's the same, and place it down like that, which means that if this is the top of the card, you're going to turn it to the right, just like from left to right. Here we tell a story from left to right. So you're always going to turn it over to the left. To the right, sorry, not to the left. Even if you're left-handed and messes your head up, you got to go right. And there's a reason for it. So you've gone right, and yang, this card here, in our intents and purposes, is in the protection position, and we would read that out of the guidebook. We would look up the protection position and read it. Now, let's put this back, right? So we'll put it back. We want to go backwards to how we did it, like that, and we stick it in here. Now pretend I made a decision beforehand that I was going to take my card, and the way I'm going to read it is to flip it over. That's up to you. Changes the whole thing though. So you decided in advance. The cards then will operate through the law of synchronicity. Your selection is all about synchronicity. You ignite that in the universe, and the universe speaks through you. So it needs to know what way you're going to put the cards, and is it going to be the top of the card when you flip it over that way, or are you going to flip it over, and then that means you have to do that with all the other cards you choose too. So again, selecting your cards, you move from right to left. Now you can move the other way. It's really up to you. I'm just showing you the way that I know works best. But you might come up with a whole other way of choosing your cards. But just remember, you have to, in advance, decide what is the top of the card once the card is when you're choosing the card. Are you going to do it this way? Or are you, and then turn it over this way to the right? Or are you going to flip it over towards you, in which case you decided in advance that the top of the card was actually going to be what you flip. This is important, you guys, when you do this, because sometimes you just do it without thinking, and it does change what the cards are trying to talk to you about. So sometimes that's why the reading comes out a little garbled, because you didn't decide that. Now, there's some other ways to select a card as well, too. So some people feel a heat in their hands, or they just kind of feel, I'll show you another way, like this. So I'll sometimes do this on the weekly oracle cards, where I'll go like this, it's close to my chest, and I'm going to feel, I get tingly in my hand, and I'm going to go, okay, this card's going to talk to me. And then I will always place it down. This is the top. I don't mess around with it. I don't flip the cards over. It's just so much easier. If I were to have put it down the way it is, I would have just turned it over and know that the top of the card was this. Just keep it simple, making sure you feel comfortable with it, and that's the way it is. You want to tell a story, you pick one card to start. Again, in the selection, I just want to make sure so again, about the selecting. So it's your mind. Remember that the cards are going to show you where you're at. So when you select your card, you got to also clear your head. You're going to only focus on the question and the highest good. Remember that. Don't sit there and think about how mad you are at your wife or your husband, or, or your laundry list or whatever. You really make it about clear your mind, choose, and select the card. Now here's another way. I showed you the fan out method, the cut and select method. Now this is a really good one too. And I used to do this a lot when I worked with classical tarot, but it works beautifully with oracle cards too. So after a really good shuffle, and I like shuffling like this too, once I've done the big shuffle, like the big main one, the main event, when you get your brand new cards, I'll typically do one or two of those, I'll do them once a year also. Then you just like play around with it, or now we can do this one. So you would cut them. I like to cut them in small piles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So you have 6 little piles, and I'm going to choose the top one of the third pile. So there you go. So I've got a card that actually makes sense to me in this moment right now. So I'm in my head now, just now I just said to myself, I want to really make this work for them, and I got chop wood, which is all about making sure it works. So my cards are having a sense of humor with me. Simple, simple, simple way to choose a card. Just do it that way. There's another way too. So we talked about left to right or up and over.
Colette, can I ask you a question?
Yes. Are you asking me the question on this? Okay, my husband is asking a question. What is that, Mark?
Just so people aren't confused, you said 6 piles, but do they
Oh,
always...
no, it doesn't have to be 6 piles. I chose 6 piles. You can do 3 piles. You can do 2 piles. You can do 10 piles. How many piles is up to you? Just pick a card from a pile. It's just a different way of giving yourself an option to select a card, and you just pick the top card of one of those little. Yeah, so that's a good question, Mark. Thank you, Mark. And you guys will be able to ask me a load of questions too in a minute. So we just have one more section to go over and then we can talk. All right, next we're going to talk about interpreting the cards. Very important, totally important. All right. All right, let's talk about interpreting the cards. You're going to start with what? You're going to start with the booklet. You've just gotten your cards. This is what Oracle Cards 101 is all about. It's supporting you when you get your new cards and it's how to start working with them. So you want to use your guidebook. No matter whose cards that you get, there's information in here about the cards, how they were made, what their themes are, to help you really understand how to actually work with the Oracle cards better. I still use my own guidebook, and here's why. So sometimes you'll feel that the whole meaning is literally accurate for you and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Other times you have to percolate on it for a little bit and you're only going to notice one sentence that truly speaks directly to your question. So ultimately, the card booklet and everything that's written in it should be your new best friend right now when it comes to working with Oracle cards. So in this particular deck, and mine are all pretty extensive, I, for example, created the card meanings, the essential meanings. In other words, like what's the core message of the card? Then the Oracle's general message for you will be the Oracle message. And then I wrote a relationship message if you were asking a question specifically about relationships. Then I wrote one about prosperity if you were talking about money and career and meaning and purpose. Then I also have a protection message if the card is upside down and you need support, more support or course correction. So that's what's all in this particular guidebook. So you want to make sure that you read as much as you can about the cards before you use them, but also while you're using them. Remember, this is going to help you get the most out of working with your Oracle cards. So you can ask yourself, what phrase stands out for you in the message for you? What if it's just a phrase, write it down. Let it sink in a little bit. Sometimes a reading will not make any sense to you at all until later in the day or the next day. So if the card reading doesn't make total sense, sometimes it could be because you're not recognizing that this card is reflecting something you're not considering. And that's why I always say, look at the guidebook, see what stands out, what triggers something in you to recognize an aha, and then just wait it out. And by the next day, everything will have made sense. Now, there are no wrong cards in conclusion. It's very funny that, and I've done this myself, and I make these cards, okay? Where I will go, I don't like this card, I'm putting it back in my thing, it's wrong. Oh, that's just wrong. When in fact, I didn't spend time long enough to actually see that that card was speaking directly to something that was really important to me at that moment, but that I wasn't necessarily asking about. So now you're going to get to know that in more of the webinars that we're going to be doing over the next few months. Right now, I've just given you a little bit of a tidbit to think about, ooh, what could she mean by that? And we will be addressing this, how to ask the right question, all these different possibilities that come up for you when you work with the oracles in subsequent webinars. And anyway, now we get to ask questions. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is going to be coming up. Mark, you're going to feed me some of these awesome questions, and I'm going to give you the answers, and we're going to have some fun now. Wait, I forgot something. Mark, before we get to the Q&A, we have to talk about something that I know I'm going to get a gazillion questions on. So let's talk about this. So I mentioned earlier that sometimes I call the reverse cards challenger cards or protection cards. And what is the difference between the two? So a couple of my decks, I have allies and challengers. So when we look at the card as an ally, that means it's upright. It says this is supporting you now. But the challenger card comes in to challenge you to open your eyes to see where you're in denial, what you need to course correct, or how to better support yourself. If in fact, maybe you're not looking after yourself properly or whatever. So it's going to give you like an extra hug. But the Challenger is going to give you a little push. Now I changed it to protection cards because in fact, what I realized in this deck is when I first started calling them protection cards and subsequently after as well. So, or we talk about medicine also in the mystical shaman. It's the medicine when it's upside down. So what does it mean? Well, it means this, that you're getting information about how to not get yourself in trouble. You're getting information in advance of you falling down a hole or hurting yourself or making a mistake that you would feel afterwards you wish you had done differently. The cards give you that information before you do it or help you to course correct if you've done something or if in fact you're confused about your next steps and you're actually working off of your familiar old habits or your wounded ego or whatever it is. The protection card is saying like, whoa, we want you to stay on track. And the cards are like, wait, don't do that. So that's why they're good, because sometimes we can just barrel through life at such a high velocity where we're completely numb and we don't even realize when we're about to fall into a trap of our old behavior or that we're going to possibly go in a direction that's really not in our highest good, even though it looks really exciting and great and whatever. We're going to find out that, maybe not. Maybe we should think twice about that. That's why they're good. Wouldn't you want like a best friend to, say, hey, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And that's what the cards do. That's why they're so good. That's why they're good. So you don't want to shy away from upside down cards in my deck. One thing I do want to also say too, the way that I create my divination systems, the protection cards are not portends of problems. In other words, they're not predicting a problem. They're giving you information so you can avoid it. That's really key too, because I know in the way people see classical tarot through the lens of superstition, not that everybody does, but some people do. They don't like, oh my God, it's an upside down card. I don't want one of those. Because there's this concept, this medieval idea that those are bad. Totally not in my oracle card decks. You work with my decks, you get an upside down card. Oh my God, you should be so happy. All right, now, Mark, I'm ready for the Q&A. Well, I'm so excited. We're about to do the Q&A now. And I loved all the chat. I was really trying not to look at the chat. So what Mark's doing right now is he's going to grab your questions and he's going to cut and paste them and stick them on a Q&A thing for me to read so that they don't go by me too quickly. But first, before we do that, I'm going to do a 3-card reading for all of us here that are in the webinar. And how I'm going to do this is Wisdom of the Oracle, as you guys know. This is the Oracle card deck that I teach with in Oracle School, by the way, and you've a bunch of great questions in there that I'm dying to answer about a lot of things, including the difference between reading for yourself and other people. So right now, I'm going to ask a question for all of us that are here watching this video. So even if you're watching the encore replay, this is for you. And the cards are going to tell us, what do we all need to know for our highest good about working with oracle cards to help us co-create our highest intentions for a better life? How's that? So I'm going to pick, the cards are clear, right? So I've intended my question. I've been very clear. They're not asking a yes or no question. It's a how. Like, what do we need to know about working with oracle cards that could help us co-create a better life for ourselves? That's another way of asking the same question. Now, I'm just going to choose 3 cards because this is for all of us. My hands are tickling, so I'm going to pick it this way. Now, if you notice, they're face down, and I'm going from left to right. The way you read a book, that's why I say left to right. It's very, very, it's uncommon for people to read right to left unless they read that way. But this is the way that comes most naturally. Okay, let's see what the oracle cards say. Okay, so here are the 3 cards that bring us, the first card is peace. Now, the first card tells us that working with oracle cards can help bring us back into a sense of harmony with the universe so that we could feel peaceful and not stressed out. Now, this is really key because we cannot tune in with our intuition or really co-create from a place of openness and limitlessness if we're in fact coming from the modern stressed psychology of our day-to-day lives, because that shuts down that access point. So if you're super, super stressed all the time, it's very difficult to get an accurate reading. You will likely see the reading reflect your stress, and it will start telling you how to get out of your stress. But in fact, what this says is it keeps you in a place of trusting and having faith that there is a power greater than you and me and all of us, that if we become partners with that, like Oracle cards are the key to open your connection to the universe where everything becomes possible. And it's all about a partnership with spirit. So that's the first card. Now, the second card is the Observer card. And the Observer card tells us that we need to have some level of detachment when we are working with Oracle cards or even planning our lives. And here's what that means. Most of us run around with our life suction cupped onto the end of our noses, and we can't see beyond what we think about, feel about, have been conditioned to expect to see in the world, as well as whatever is the bombardment of digital information that comes at us, none of which we're actually hardwired to manage. Little kids are, because they're just born a little different than us, but most of us aren't. So what working with Oracle cards allow us to do is step back and view our lives as a story in motion, which is actually the whole purpose. Do you know that all Oracle cards, not cards, but all oracles, because they didn't have cards way back when, began as a method of going into a deep, intimate dialogue with the divine way back in the goddess culture. So we just happen to have cards now. So my oracles that come from the ancient systems are created to be on cards. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about being in the observer, being in that detached position where you have some distance and you can make better decisions because you are wearing the world loosely around your shoulders. And you're in a position of trust, because that was the first card. And finally, Yang, it helps us make decisions, get us focused, get us off our asses to do something. And that's really a phenomenal aspect of working with oracles, because they can show you the next right action when you feel confused or overwhelmed by the din that surrounds all of us in our modern world. So not only are you getting that peaceful interaction with the harmony of the universe, as you enter into this partnership with spirit, you are able to stay back and see through the eyes of your soul, because that's really the observer. And then you can realize that you are a powerful co-creator. The Yang card also represents that action that you can take to make a better world for yourself and others. And that's why I have completely devoted myself to doing this. So this is all about us. Now let's answer some of the questions. Okay. How many cards should you draw? Are there too many or too few? Okay, so that's a really good question. I like everybody to start with one card. What I teach in Oracle School is we begin with one card. You will not believe how much information can come from just one card if you allow it to sink in and see it as a representation of your dominant energy on that day. So I really like simple. When I was using the tarot, now remember, this is Oracle cards, and these are my Oracle cards we're talking about. So the tarot, I used to do 21 card spreads all the time for all my clients. So I'm used to doing multiple deep dive readings, which we're not talking about today. Remember, this is Oracle Cards 101. We're going to do Oracle Cards 2.0 another time. So remember, one card, 3 card is good. 3 cards can tell you the story in motion effortlessly, where you've been, where you are now, and where you're pointing. Remember, Oracle cards are there to help you make better choices and co-create your reality, not to so much predict your future as other than give you a prescription for how to create your future. And that's the distinction that I like to make with people, although I also do predictive readings, and we'll do something on that too. Okay. I got confused with turning cards upside down when opening a new deck for the first time, and confused a bit when fanning the cards to pick them left to right. Okay. if you were actually to try it, it would not be confusing. So the whole idea is that you'd like your deck to have cards that are both upright and reversed. So you just want to mix them up so that you know. And trust me, if you just drop the whole freaking deck on the floor, I mean, we don't want to do that, but that would be a way. So it just don't get too stressed out about it. You can't do it wrong. But we do want, in the very beginning, when you first get your cards, you want to have a nice mix. Can I ask questions about people and situations I'm not familiar with at all? Or is the oracle only about my subconscious? Ooh, very good question here. So that's got a lot of answers, this one question. You cannot ask questions about people without their permission. You can ask questions about your relationship to those people, which then enables you to see this about you. You can ask questions about other people if you are doing a reading for someone else. And by the way, reading for other people is the easiest thing to do. It is not difficult at all to learn how to use oracle cards for others. You don't have any personal bias. There's no baggage that carries around. You're seeing through your life experience and personality, but it's much easier to interpret for somebody else, including getting your intuition. When you're reading for yourself, which is what I really hammer home, in oracle school, it's much, much harder, but the depth of communication that you get with the universe is extraordinary. So I just sort of like to make that distinction now, especially for some of you who are coming into oracle school in September, that I really take you into a deep dive into yourself. So yes, the oracle cards work with your subconscious, of course, but they work with where you're at. So it's not just your subconscious. Remember I said earlier about the mirror. It shows you your life as you know it, but also of the things that are hidden from you and you can't see. So so it's more than your subconscious. It's the events that you may not be aware of as well. So just that's for the Oracle Card 2.0 webinar. Okay. How do you get connected before you do a reading? What's the best way to connect to intuition? So first of all, let's get something straight. Oracle cards, when you first get them and you read your guidebook, and I want to talk about that too, because somebody asked before about, I was told not to read a guidebook, but why would we have one if you're not meant to use it? So okay, wait, I missed okay, sorry. The best way to connect to intuition. So intuition will lock in once.
You're talking about the guidebook.
Oh, he's talking about the guidebook. Okay, my husband's going to get me back straight because I got all excited because I saw more questions. Okay, let's go back to the guidebook. All right, because I did want to mention that too. I think it was Anton that said something. So let's talk about this guidebook and why you are supposed to read it. So how would you know how to work with the cards if you don't know what the author intended for them? And if you didn't read the descriptors, the essence, how to apply the meanings to different subjects. Like in this particular deck, I delineate them for relationships, for prosperity. I have protection reading. So I've actually done all the heavy lifting for you already. Then if you're working with somebody else, for example, let's say you're doing a reading for someone else, then you have the framework of that person's life experience that you can then speak to based on what you tune into on top of it. But especially when you're first starting out, you should use the guidebook, because how do you know you're going to get the right thing, right? Just by looking at the art? You won't. And I am an expert in this, so I can tell you that I've had the experience of reading over 50,000 individual people over the, and so I think I kind of know about this stuff. So don't limit yourself. Use the resources that you have. Some people like to memorize their guidebook. Now, I obviously know my cards really well, so I know what they mean, and I also know how to read intuitively. But give yourself a shot at first reading the guidebook from cover to cover, getting to know it a little bit, and studying it, because that is why I created it, so that you have a rich, rich encyclopedia of in-depth symbolism and metaphor that you can draw on once you work with the cards. Now, which part did I not do? Best way to connect to intuition. Yeah. So
I call it. Some people would like you to.
What?
The whole question. Just.
What? Some people.
Ask the whole question.
I don't see any more in here. Ask the whole question.
Yeah.
How do you get connected before you do a reading? And then what's the best way to connect to intuition? I pray. So with each of my decks, I download a prayer. I imagine, that I'm asking for help and guidance. And sometimes I actually channel a prayer and I write it down in the guidebook. But For most importantly, I say, let me be a channel for divine insight. Of myself, I am nothing. The universe doeth the works. Relieve me of the bondage of self, so that I may better do thy will. Let there only be light for the highest good, and let me do no harm. So that, you can watch the replay again. I don't have that written out like that. I have various versions of that, but those are the kind of things you want to say. You want to acknowledge that there's a power greater than you. You want to surrender your ego to that power so that you stay out of it, so you're not projecting your stuff onto the reading. Then you want to ask to be of service, right? So you want to be a channel for that. Never to do harm, right? That's always for the highest good and bringing light or illumination to a situation. So that's the way that you should always prepare to do a reading. I always make it sacred. I rarely go into a reading. Even before I did this webinar, Mark and I did a prayer. I did a whole gratitude prayer, and we always actually pray before we do these things. So that's what we do. Okay. Yes, Rhiannon asked a similar question. Deborah says, is it necessary to learn about each card individually before reading with a new deck? Here's the thing. If you really, really, really want to get to know your deck, yes, I would go through every card. Why wouldn't you do that? These are going to be a guide for you. So this is your new best friend. Now you can go like, oh, let's just see what happens also. But, I always say, take advantage of the fact that you have this extraordinary system of communication now. Why not learn the language, right? So it's like not just learning how to ask, where is the bathroom in another language, right? You want to know all the words that you can put together so that you have a general feeling of each Oracle card deck. Like, for example, when my new deck comes out in October, the spirit animal deck, you're going to want to look at all the animals and feel them out, etc. And when my goddess deck comes out, you're going to want to meet all the goddesses. So I would say, yes, look at all the cards, get to know them, especially for Oracle card systems. In tarot, you always have the same 78 cards. They're always going to be in the same position. And there's a million books out there because it's a fixed system. With Oracle cards, it's a little more personal and subjective also to the author who creates them. So get to know your deck. That's my answer. Mickey Q says, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm doing this correctly. When reading for someone else, how would you flip work with the challenger cards? The bottom line is that you talk to that person very gently and very kindly and say, this is a protection card, which means we want to take a little closer look at the subject, right? When you're doing a reading for somebody else, you don't want to tell them anything like so bad, like, oh, this is so bad, because you can always course correct, right? So you want to say, oh, this card is in protection. Therefore, it's challenging you to take a look at this subject a little closer. And that's how you do that with your clients. Consistently while shuffling, one of several cards have flown out. I call those jumper cards. As they've often seemed right on, that has become my way of consulting the cards. Your opinion. Well, Karen, if you're only waiting for the cards to fly out of your deck, that's something that would be very specific to you. I don't recommend it because I want you to get used to actually choosing the cards as well. You can keep your jumper cards aside because jumper cards typically give you more information about the reading or give you the core of the reading if, for example, it's going to answer a different question for you. So I would love to see you add the way we do it, choose cards. And then if the jumper cards come out, you want to take them out separately, and you only read the jumper cards upright, by the way. That's why it's distinguished from, like, you wouldn't read them as protection cards. So that's why they're a little dicey if that's the only way you're reading your cards. Okay. Dolphins 3Q, what can we do? How should we interpret it when the advice card is upright and the outcome card is in protection? Oh, because there is no fixed outcome. So when a card is upright, so here's the thing. It's like if it's upright and it tells you something, I'm going to pretend. Let's just take two cards to answer that question. How would I answer this? Okay, so this was an upright card, and let's pretend. Oh, it is actually. I don't have to pretend. It is upside down anyway. We do not have to pretend this at all. So say this card is upright, which is called a change in the wind. So we know that card represents an environmental shift, either mentally or in the actual environment of the person. Is there actual change? Are they moving? Is there a change in perspective or perception or opinion? things are changing basically. So this is in the upright position. Now that doesn't mean that that card is better than the card that is in the protection position. Chop wood is the outcome card of that, means that there's lots of work to be done. And that it means that, you're not out of the woods. Okay. So when the change occurs, there's going to be a lot for you to do and to pay attention to clean up the baggage of the past. I'll actually look that card up here. I'm totally loving this Q&A thing, by the way. My Q&A is my favorite part of the webinar. I know my husband goes, don't you like the rest of it? Yes, but this part's the best. Okay, so here it is. This is really good. Are you an armchair astronaut? Do you dream of wealth and fame, big ideas, inventions, or desires with a capital D? The appearance of this card is a sign you might be devoting far too much time to dreaming and talking about your dreams. Anyway, so it says, I'll just keep going. It says, take one step towards the gods and they will take 10 steps towards you. So this card says, even though there is a change, do not be idle and don't sit there. You have an opportunity. So that's another way to look at this. A change in the wind is an opportunity for change. And this card, what shows in protection, is don't sit in the chair and just dream. Do you see how those things go together? The outcome is not, there's a negative outcome. That's a fixed concept. The way I teach reading oracle cards, especially in Oracle school, this is a common statement that I make, is that we are stories in motion. There is no such thing as a fixed ending. There is no end destination. There is only the next experience that you're evolving into while your consciousness is focused on one particular potential reality that plays out from a particular vantage point. Now, I know that's pretty dense, but I don't teach fluffy bunny. So let me move to the next one. Will we be able to rewatch this later? You are absolutely going to be able to watch this later. And right, when are they getting it? We don't know. As soon as it's over. But yes, you will get it as a replay. How do I address someone's concern about using the book instead of just interpreting them intuitively? Well, here's the thing. It's kind of like going to math class and you got the book that tells you how to add. Do you just look at the numbers and try to put them together yourself? Or do you take the book that was given to you to study that will first give you the information that you need before you go to the intuitive cards? Because I'm telling you, all of my Oracle card decks were supposed to be used with the guidebook in the beginning. And also as a reference guide, if you feel a little lost, once you've gotten really used to the cards and you're getting into the intuitive processing with them, but that happens later. Why would you skip over the, like if you go to university and you get all these big books, you're supposed to read them. Like you're supposed to study them. That's what I know. Okay. So basically you tell them that very story.
So they don't want to read the book.
Well, they don't have to read the book. Then they won't get it. I don't use the book because I don't need to use the book because I've made these cards. A lot of people in Oracle school refer back to the book, but some people found that they could do both. It's just really, it's kind of like going to the gym or learning a skill. Like first learn it and then go do that. It just makes common sense. But I can't make anybody do anything. But that's my expertise. How or why did you start using Oracle cards? Okay, my husband's going to make me want to make this story short. Okay, so I won't tell you my whole life story, but it is important because I've literally completely devoted the rest of my career and my legacy to teaching people how to use this as a communication tool with the universe and a direct, intimate dialogue with the divine. I started using these cards when I was 17. I'm going to be 60 years old. Okay. So I've been using Oracle cards for 43 years. There were no Oracle cards like I have made back then. I used the classical tarot and became an expert in it just because I was obsessed with them. That was my hobby when I was young, that and guitar. All right. So by the time I started using the Oracle cards for real. And I don't want to tell you too much of this story, but I've been clean and sober for 32 years. And when I first got sober, I started using oracles again. I started using Norse runes and the classical tarot to help me stay on track. And I did use them for myself because I got really, really good at reading for myself. That was then. Then after I started a couple years later, because that 2 years of sobriety, I started doing readings. I used the classical tarot, but I found that the fixed system, I wanted to go beyond that. So I took all the information that I had learned, and I'm talking, you should have seen my stacks of books, like archaic books written in the turn of the century, the previous century, etc., about divination and all the really old things from the Norse and the Celts. And I really did I did a deep dive in this area. And I thought, geez, what if I could put together my own oracle system that played off the ancient systems, but were really for modern psychology. So that became my hobby. And then I ended up at Hay House, and I knew how to do this. So I did the Wisdom of Avalon, and consequently, recently, in the past, couple of years, we've talked about me doing more because I've done all these decks already. They've been sitting like years and years and years of attention placed on that. And that's why you're seeing so many of my decks right now. They aren't just popping out of me like candy. They are the result of many, many years of creating these things, and they have been waiting to be published. So that's why, because people are asking me, like, how come you're doing so many decks? It's because they're there. Hay House has asked me because people need different decks that they feel more connected to. That's why. And plus, all my decks, by the way, are created. When you see them all at the end in the next 2 years, every single one of them speaks to each other. So I've made a huge language with oracles. But that's for Oracle card 3.0. Okay, I sometimes read the cards, this is Valerie, from an intuitive base first and share that information with myself of my client. Then I read and consult the book to see and feel, that's great. That's a really smart way to do things. And actually, when I was doing readings, I would first see what I saw intuitively for the client. And this is, I'm obviously talking to the people who are professionals here. I would just get my download, tell them what I saw. Then I would use the cards. Typically, I would let, if they were in front of me, because I used to years and years and years ago, and I don't do readings professionally anymore. I just do this. So I would let them pick their cards. And then we would see if there was more to actually see, or if that card reading gave me more information about the subject or confirmed what we were seeing. And also clients like that. People like to see, oh, the card said that, because they get weirded out sometimes because, oh, the person saw that, but the card said it. The card said it. So yes, I think that's a great way of doing it if you're working with somebody else. Do you have a digital deck, and is it as accurate? I'm going to tell you something. I was nervous at first, but I know the law of synchronicity. So when I had my very first app done, I was scared. I thought maybe it's not going to work. Well, I'll tell you this, it totally works. And it works exactly the same way because the law of synchronicity, remember, we do these readings within a morphogenetic field. And that means this entangled field of energy where our consciousness exists, the consciousness of the universe exists, our personal awareness, and then the tool that we've asked to work on our behalf. So they work. And I use my digital decks all the time. I have them in my phone. So now, Clary says, in private readings, do you combine your decks with any other systems of Oracle, i.e. Tarot, I Ching? If so, which one? Oh my gosh, you guys are asking me great questions. However, I should probably do a pro. Should I do one? Maybe a webinar for pros? People at some point? 2.0. Maybe I'll ask, because you're asking a lot of.
Someone did ask, what is Oracle School?
So what is Oracle? Okay. So I'll tell you what Oracle School is first. But yes, I do. I used to mix them up all. I mean, I did everything. So, but this is for professionals. And I just want to still talk to, remember, we're doing essential Oracle Cards 101 here this time. I'll answer some of those questions, some of these more complex questions next time. Okay. What is Oracle School? So Oracle School is my legacy school that starts every year when school starts in September or October now. And what it is an in-depth and intense online course of personal development with Oracle cards. So I don't teach you how to read cards the way you think. I teach you how to read cards as a tool to open your connection to the universe and change your life. That's the point of Oracle School. It is definitely teaching you how to work with the cards, but it's specifically how to work with the cards to change your life. So you are immersing yourself, in who you want to become. And I teach you universal law and how to co-create or manifest your reality using the Oracle cards. And remember the mirror, the navigation system, the interpreter, the GPS? Mirror, there's 5 of them. What were they, Mark? I can't remember now. But anyway, the multi-purpose tool that we have, the flashlight too. to how to change your life and how to work past your blocks and your obstacles to your best life. That's what Oracle School is. So you tune into your inner Oracle and you become that person who really can experience the magic in your life. You know that the world is constantly alive and speaking to you. So that's my first level. It's called Personal Mastery. And you can only study with me if you do Personal Mastery, which is the first course. Then I offer a second, much longer course for 7 months called Shared Wisdom, where we do some pretty wild things. We build a living oracle inside the school. We build it up so people add to it, and then we actually use it as an oracle ourselves. I teach you everything from reading your soup bowls to other methods that the universe has to communicate with you. My husband said, wrap it up. Okay. I'm all excited about Oracle School. Okay, let's carry on here. Someone I know taught me to cut the deck into 3 piles and reverse the middle pile. Yeah, Carol, you can do it that way. I used to do that. I mean, whichever way you want to do that. Why use an oracle deck instead of tarot cards, Arjun? Well, here's the deal. Tarot cards are a fixed system and you have a limitation of what you're going to be able to see. And I personally wanted to create oracle cards to be a more fluid system that were more psychologically engaged with a modern person who would work with that system to speak to them about where they are, where they've been, where they want to go. Tarot is really a personal choice. I did create a deck called the Good Tarot. So I love the tarot. I just wanted to I'm just a rebel, honey. I want to do different things. So my oracle card decks are actually a blend of a number of ancient systems specific to work here with us in our modern world. Do you cleanse up and wrap your cards in silk? That's Dawn. Dawn, I used to do that. I actually have little boxes for them. I always clear them, and actually you clear them by doing that. You can tap your cards, but you can wrap them in silk. You can wrap them in, you can put them in a beautiful box. It's up to you how you want to store your cards. When you do something like that, though, you make them sacred and they become a sacred communication tool. So why do you create so many oracle card decks? That's a really good question, Joseph. Okay, so I am a prolific artist, for one. And I believe that we are called to speak about different themes that may appeal to different people, and that not every oracle's theme is going to speak to the same people. For example, the oracle I did with Alberto Villoldo, the mystical shaman deck, was very appealing to people who are interested in universal shamanism, where it had a more indigenous feel. Now, that doesn't appeal to everybody. Some people like fairies. I'm not going to do a fairy deck, but I love fairies. But so it's really themes. For example, I'm doing a goddess power deck, but it is attached to a teaching that I'm going to be launching in February. So each deck has its own history, its own theme, and will appeal to different people at different times. The way I create decks, though, is my decks actually fulfill an entire lexicon. So that's one of the reasons why I create more than one or two. But this is my mainstay of my art. So that's why there's more. What?
I just want to say that a few people are starting to write in about how you treat your cards and stuff like cleansing and that. And I think you might just want to address the fact that it's a personal choice.
Yes, it's a personal choice. However you clear your cards, however you store your cards, make it sacred for you. It's really a personal choice. It really is a personal choice. Here's what when you ask me, how do I clear myself after a reading so you don't carry the person's energies or baggage? I like to wash my hands. So I always go with water. Water is always a clearing, a cleansing. I also cut the cords. I visually cut the cords between me and that person. I will close my hands like this now. And it's really a decision to release that person from an obligation. So there's always an exchange of energy also. If you're an empath, I'm going to tell you, if you're an empath and you do readings for other people, here's the quickest way for you not to carry people's baggage. Go get yourself some Himalayan salt blocks. Order it online or get it from your butcher or your a fish store, because typically fish is stored on Himalayan salt. But that will clear your energy as you're doing the reading. If you put your bare feet on the salt blocks. They're about this thick, and you feel amazing. So that was one of the things that I found really worked for me, because I would blow up after a reading when I saw people in person. My legs would swell. I'd be like plump. I'd feel depressed. And then when I learned about that, I was like, woo. So that's a really good thing to do. Will you do a course on the new shaman deck? Probably, but I still have to talk to Alberto and Marcella about that. Bojana Q, in what situations do you use the enchanted map? Are there different decks for different questions and situations? Yes. So I like to use the enchanted map deck when I need to look at, I think we use it for business, do we not, Mark? If we're looking at the enchanted map. Actually, an enchanted map was the course that I taught for coaches. So for coaches to use in their practice, because they gave you really practical advice about where you're heading. And since coaching is an interactive relationship between yourself and your client, and very different than doing a reading, which is passive. So you're the active and the person's the passive receiver. I teach something different in Oracle School as well. So you want to use the deck when you are looking for advice and movement. So like, where am I heading? What's the practical advice with this? The more esoteric or the more emotional deck, I think, is Avalon. So I always go to Avalon when I want a more gentler connection to the deck. Remember too, that decks are like people. For some of you, this might be a little big to swallow, but I feel like my decks have a presiding spirit in them. So it's like having a whole bunch of people on a council. And I also address this in Oracle School. Okay. So let me see, what else is there? Are all questions formed for a yes or no answer? No questions are formed for a yes or no answer with my decks. They were not created for that. They were actually meant for you to go deeper within your own story or within the story for somebody else. Yes or no is actually really takes away the power from the other person to make the right decision for themselves. That's the point of this, is to understand a situation so you make an empowered choice. Everything I teach is about empowering somebody to make better decisions, not to give them all the answers. Okay. How do you create your decks? Ooh, I love this. So this is from Bex. So Bex, that's a really good question, because everybody is different. And I really love people to know how I create my decks. So the first deck that I created, and I won't go through all of them, but was Wisdom of Avalon. And I was so connected personally to the legend of Avalon. I used to paint little blue moons on my forehead when I was growing up, and I didn't know the first thing about priestesses and anything about England. I'm Canadian. So when I read the book, The Mists of Avalon, it was like something in me woke up. I had incredible experiences in Glastonbury. And when Hay House asked if I wanted to do an Oracle deck, because they knew I had a history of expertise in divination, I said I would really like to do one honoring the energy of Avalon. So that's what that deck. Typically, what happens to me, and it's changed over the years too, is that I open up and see what I'm called to create, much like an artist that creates a song so I wouldn't say it's spirit guides. I really believe it's source that gives me this, and it's the deck itself that calls me to it. And because everything that I'm doing is for the highest good and it's for guidance, but it does start with a template that I've developed over years that I've tested. So I have a framework, because it always has to have a language that locks. Otherwise the decks don't work, which is what I talked to you about earlier. There are decks that aren't supposed to be, like this one is not meant to have a multi-card reading with it. It's only meant for one card a day. And quite a few Oracle decks actually you're going to find on the market. Even though you buy them thinking that you're going to get to do readings with them, you're going to find that they don't lock, so they don't speak to each other. So that's the other thing. I developed a system quite mathematically and through trial and error of being able to make a deck work. And then from there, I build it out. So there's a combination of my expertise and intellect, and then 80% of it is then the energy of the actual deck that calls me to it, that speaks to me, that tells me who wants to be in, who doesn't want to be in, etc. We can do another seminar. Oh, my poor husband is going I want to do another webinar on that. Okay. Is one in relationship that you question it's your highest good for you If one is in a relationship that you question its highest good for you, or how would you pose the question to the cards? So you would say, you would ask the cards, and it wouldn't be a yes or no. What do I need to know for my highest good about remaining in this relationship? Or what gift does this relationship offer me? Or what hidden agenda does this relationship hide from me? So you want to ask, you can ask a number of questions. That is one of the biggest thing that I teach in Oracle School too, is how to ask questions, because that's the way people actually kind of go off the rails when they work with Oracle cards, because they don't know what right questions to ask. So let's do another one. Do we still have time?
We're going to have to wrap it up quickly.
Right, I'm having too much fun.
There. Go to the very bottom.
Okay.
Someone wants to know about
Does
Bonnie.
The spirit of the wisdom of the Oracle deck have a name? And if so, will you share that name with us? Well, I just call this deck WOTO. So for short, Wisdom of the Oracle for short. They don't name themselves to me. So I'm going to say that I don't have a name, but that's actually good. Maybe I should ask what its name is. I've never asked what its name is, because then I find it then somehow anthropomorphizes it a little bit more than, but you know what? I should get back to you on that one. I've never asked what its name is or what
your staff all named the decks.
What?
Yeah, this is WOTO.
Oh, this is WOTO. What is the other ones? The staff has named the decks? Oh, apparently my staff has given my decks a name I don't know about. So the spirit of the deck does not have a specific name. Okay. What else? That's a good question. Is Enchanted Map the only digital deck you made? No. The best digital product is Wisdom of the Oracle, this one. And it's Ocean House Media, and you can get it on iTunes, and it's in the Google Play Store. So this one is for both. Mystical Shaman and all my decks are actually apps on Hay House. So they're there. And right now they don't show up on Google Play, but they're all for iTunes or what is it? The iStore? The App Store.
Google Play and iTunes.
Yeah. iTunes. Okay. Okay. Anything else, or should we wrap up?
We should wrap up.
But you give me some more.
Okay. I'll give you two more.
Give me 2 more questions. Come on. Are you guys having fun? I want to see the chat. Are they having fun?
Well, we'll see in a second.
They are having Fred. No, Alyssa, Fred is the name of my 11 angels. Okay. So, I'm not done yet. Let's have 2 more questions. Do we have 2 more questions?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. We're going to do 2 more questions.
You had 2 in there.
I did?
Yeah.
Hang on. No. I want to see. I skipped a couple because what's
go
it?
Back to the Google Doc.
Hang on a sec. No, I don't want to do the Google Doc one. Give me salt blocks for empaths. Amazon salt blocks, but they're not called salt blocks for empaths. Robin asks, will I create a deck for mediumship? It's unlikely. Even though I'm a medium and I have a TV show called Messages from Spirit on Amazon Prime, which you can see me talk to dead people, I feel like that's a great blessing and a gift. This was as close as I'm ever going to get to talking to dead people with cards. And it is your 2 cents from heaven. So I would say Postcards from Spirit is a connection to mediumship, but I have no plans because what my goal is to create many really, really powerful, profound, intimate, and quality divination systems for you guys. Okay.
I have the last question.
Last question.
So how often can you do a reading for yourself?
Ooh.
If you ask for guidance, will the universe, will it just say, forget it? Chick?
Yes. Did somebody say, will they just say, forget it, chick? That's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. That's a great question to end this webinar on. Okay. Because there is a card. Do you remember I showed you that card, Not For You, with the, sometimes it says, forget it. As a matter of fact, I was offered a TV show. I'm serious. I was offered a TV show. And I thought, wow, it's so awesome. And I told my husband, oh, it's going to be so great. And I picked a card and it said, not for you. And then I was like, come on. And then I picked another card because I thought that card was wrong. Even though I teach everybody that there are no wrong cards, it was just the answer I didn't want. And then the second card was All That Glitters in Protection, which was basically run. And I didn't do the show. And I'm glad I didn't because it really would have been awful and very, just so no. So yeah, sometimes the cards will say, no. Forget it, chick. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me. I'm like, this is my total, just the most exciting thing. I love this. I can't believe so many people signed up for this. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing tons more webinars before Oracle School opens in September. And I will be creating more decks. And again, this is like works of art. So it's kind of like I want to paint more pictures, and I'll have more ways for you to communicate with the universe. So that's, again, for Joseph. That's why there's more decks. Mwah! I love you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, honey, for sitting with me while I did this. Bye, you guys.